We're back.
Everyone, thanks for joining us here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'd like to welcome American composer Eric Nathan on To Go Local Live. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to chat with you. Your work has been played all over the world, including some of your work has been played by the Boston Symphony Orchestra, the National Symphony Orchestra. Your music has been played at Carnegie Hall, just to name a few, and I could go on and on and on and on and on. So we're very excited to chat with you today. You're also an assistant professor of music at Brown University, and you've received your doctorate from Cornell. So just to throw a few accolades in there for you today. So we're really excited to chat with you, talking a little bit about music, some of your work, and a little bit about what's happening. So talk to me just a little bit about your background. How did you even decide you wanted to be a composer?
Well, I began my interest in music actually through Mr. Rogers, the TV show. I saw Wynton Marsalis playing trumpet on the show, and I wanted to become a trumpet player after that. And I was performing in lots of different groups, and I realized that I loved to play music, but I hated to practice.
Like a lot of kids.
But when I composed, I could compose all day long, 13 hours, missed meals,
Wow.
and just loved it. I'd love to perform still, but I thought maybe I should be doing this and being able to kind of share my feelings and ideas through music.
That's incredible. Kudos to Mr. Rogers out there. That's absolutely fascinating. Talk to me just a little bit about some of your recent work. I mean, you've been, like I mentioned before, your work has been performed by Boston Symphony Orchestra, National Symphony Orchestra. Your work has been featured by New York Philharmonic, performed at the Carnegie Hall. My goodness. What is that like for you to be working, like you said, for 13 hours a day, you skip meals, you don't even know it, but then to hear what you've done be performed at all over the world. What is that like?
It's one of the most thrilling experiences. Of course, being a composer is a very solitary life. We're in my office composing. Of course, I'm engaging with my musical characters like a novelist is in following the storylines around of their characters in their books. But kind of this public-facing aspect of being a composer is when I then get to engage with musicians. And what I love so much about working with live performers is that it's really a communication, and they interpret my work. I've written something very detailed on the page that hope will lend them to interpret it, to then share it with an audience, but it's this act of sharing it with the audience that the music gets something new. And I love to see when performers take something that I've written but find something of their own in it, and then I see how what I've created takes on a new life, and I meet a piece for the first time when I hear it performed. Sometimes it goes exactly the way I thought, but I love it when slight little things change and I see what it can be.
Really? So you love maybe when they take a little bit of twist and add something to their own? Because, what kind of interests me when you're saying that, I'm thinking of, when an author writes a book, because you just mentioned this, and then there's a screen adaptation or a stage adaptation, and authors don't always love when that gets changed. But you just mentioned you like it. You like when they add personal touch. Oh,
I love adding the personal touch. Of course, there's a limit to how much I want the work to be changed, but I keep an open mind, and it's really an exchange of ideas. And I think I feel so thankful to be a composer every day in the music world, because it's really a world focused on empathy and communication. Here I may experience something in my life that is meaningful to me. I try to distill this, put it into a story, maybe use it as a vessel for sharing this emotion with an audience. The performers, you have an orchestra like the Boston Symphony or the Rhode Island Philharmonic, 90 players from different backgrounds and all coming together for that one performance to create something at a very high level together, to share it for 2,000 people. It's in our society today, this is really very special that we have people listening to each other and sharing with each other and feeling empathy for each other. And I think Providence should really be very supportive of its orchestras and its live music for this human exchange.
It's really remarkable how you mentioned that in today's society, being able to listen and support and feel that connection, it's unique in a way.
Yeah.
Definitely unique in a way. I listened to an interview that you had done, that you wrote this piece of music that had, let's see where it was. Oh, so you wrote this piece of music, The Space of a Door, and you said you had the Boston Symphony in mind, and you said you had them in mind since you were in 4th grade. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, as a kid, I went to Tanglewood, which is a music festival in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. And so I was a student as a trumpet player there for many years, and then I came back in college as a graduate school as a composer at the Tanglewood Music Center. And throughout this time I've been hearing the Boston Symphony since I was growing up, and so their sound has been in my ear, and it was a real joy to then work with them.
Wow.
And their music director, Anders Nelson's, on this piece, which actually got its genesis in a sense here in Providence, from the Providence Athenaeum, which is a real treasure here. I walked into the doorway for the first time, and if you've ever been, you're greeted with this overwhelming view of books, just kind of welcoming you in this room, and that inspired the very opening of my piece, which then followed my emotional reaction to being in this meditative space. But of course, in a piece of music, I can abstract things, so it was also relating to my feelings on the death of my composition mentor, Stephen Stuckey, but then also all the tragic events from the summer of 2016, but then on concepts that arose from the library of you have all these books that are each a portal to another world, and how there is individuality there, but also a kind of collective community at the same time that we're surrounded with.
That's fascinating. Just by being able to think and then walk in, but then interpret all that and capture it in a sound.
In a sound.
In
yeah.
a sound. That's absolutely incredible and beautiful when you think about it. What else gives you inspiration?
When I compose, I get inspiration from nowadays experiences. In the past, I was inspired by art. But now it's these experiences, and I feel an emotion or a sensation that I want to capture, and then I want to share with others. And so I think that piece arose out of that need to kind of come to terms with these feelings I was experiencing. Another piece actually that arose from the Providence Athenaeum, and I'm giving a talk at the Athenaeum this coming Friday, which I'll be speaking more in depth about these works. But also on that first visit, I opened the card catalog and happened to open up the H's and was reading all the titles that begin with the word how. And I realized I became very moved because how is both a question and an answer. And I was reading this series of titles, and I created a poem alphabetically of these titles. I've taken a few out to make it work a little better, but it really, I felt, kind of spoke to the meaning of life. In a sense, it begins with how a baby grows, how a bride was won, how a merchant did his wife betray, goes on to how computers work, how Shakespeare spent the day, and some more philosophical stanza of how it is, how it was, how late it was, and it ends with how she died, how she loves him, how small a part of time. So it kind of encapsulates life in these series of questions and answers, but I feel it's something that was laying to be discovered in this library that I happened upon. It's a kind of a found object.
Are you able to turn your brain off and quiet it, or is it always seeking, seeing, moving, creating?
I think I'm always listening, but there are times when I'm listening more than others.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Oh my goodness. Let's talk a little bit about your most recent residency. You were at the Yellow Barn in Vermont to workshop a new 45-minute song cycle, Some Favored Nook. Tell us just a little bit about that experience.
It was really fantastic. Yellow Barn afforded us an opportunity to work on this piece, rehearse it, and then workshop it. And the Brown Arts Initiative also helped support it with a grant. And I collaborated with the librettist Mark Campbell, and then also soprano Jessica Rivera, baritone Andrew Garland, who actually taught at Brown for a number of years, and then pianist Molly Morkowski. And this piece takes texts by Emily Dickinson, the famous poet, but then also Thomas Wentworth Higginson, who's less well known, but they had a 24-year correspondence in during her lifetime, and he was a very noted essayist at the time and also a noted abolitionist, and was the commanding officer of the 1st Black Regiment in the Civil War, which is the 1st South Carolina Volunteers. And so this places her poetry in the context of the Civil War and also the context of the patriarchal society of the time, where it places her struggle of being a woman poet in this society against his struggle and fighting for abolition in the Civil War, but also he was a noted supporter of women poets and published many during his lifetime, and he actually posthumously, after Emily Dickinson died, he published all of her collected works and helped found Radcliffe College in Cambridge. So I think it's a very interesting story, and I think also very relevant to today, issues of women's rights, civil rights, and then just kind of love, death, and relationships.
Oh my goodness. And so when will people be able to get their hands and ears and everything else on that?
Well, we're hoping to bring it to Providence in the next year or so stay tuned for that.
Cool.
And if you're listening outside of Providence, if you want us to bring it to your hometown, let us know, and
Perfect.
We're looking to put together a tour for this.
Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible. All right. And you do have 2 things that you're working on around here. So if people want to come and listen to you and your works, what's happening in Providence?
So currently, until November 5th, at the Granoff Center at Brown, in the Cohen Gallery, I have a collaborative immersive installation on exhibit. And this is a work I created with the artist Catherine Wagner, architect Thomas Kelly, and landscape architect Loretta Gargan, and it's called Lumen. And it's a meditative experience where we have music, scent, video, and sculptural elements, and also plants that kind of immerse you in this recontextualization of the pew in a secular context.
That's amazing.
Well, I hope you can come down. It's open for all the opening hours of the Granoff Center. And then on November 10th, there's a very special concert that I'm hosting here at Brown with the Grammy Award-winning pianist Gloria Chung, who's performing a concert titled Garlands for Stephen Stuckey. And Stephen Stuckey was my teacher at Cornell University, and he was a beloved composer, one of America's leading voices in contemporary music, and he passed away all too early about a year ago. And so 32 of his colleagues, friends, and students have all written 1 to 2 minute memorial pieces for him, and 26 of them will be premiered here at Martinos Auditorium on November 10th at 8 p.m. And it's a range of composers from Johanna Harbison, who's in Boston, to Esa-Pekka Salonen, the famous conductor composer, Magnus Lindberg, Christopher Rouse, many composers. I have a piece as well on this. And I've heard excerpts of these pieces, and these composers have really channeled greatly deep emotion in just 1 minute pieces.
Wow.
Steve Stuckey was a very special person.
Oh, so what is that like for you to be able to not only have a piece in this memorial concert, correct, but to be able to work with so many other greats of our time right now, to be able to kind of memorialize someone that meant something so much to you?
I think this speaks to the community of contemporary music, and Stuckey himself was kind of led by example of what it is to be a member of a musical community or any sort of community, really helping other composers and being so generous with his spirit. So I think we're all repaying him in that aspect. And we do it for the next generation too. So if you're interested in hearing more about composers speaking about their work, we actually have a lecture series called Music Now here at Brown that my colleague Wang Lu and I and Butrovan here at Brown, we've co-founded. And Gloria Chung will actually be speaking about this project on November 10th at 1 p.m. in Orwick Music Building. This is open to the public, and we have actually this Friday composer, sound artist Ali Momeni presenting as well.
That's absolutely wonderful. I think just being able to be educated and hear what's happening now and trends and how music can really impact you and impact other people is really neat. How do you think that how music today can influence younger people? You teach as well. Why is that important to you, and how do you think music can make a difference in people's lives?
Well, I think music already plays a great role in many people's lives. Pop music is ever present. Art music, concert music, in the classical realm that I'm working on now, I think is equally as important. And they each, whatever medium you choose, your artists are expressing themselves. So I teach a course titled From the Blues to Beyonce, and it's for non-majors, non-concentrators, and trying to show students who may not have a knowledge of how music works, how music can speak and engage with cultural, societal, political realms, how it speaks about race and gender, how it can, in a sense, be in a dialogue with our society. And music is special in that it of course, songs that use lyrics, we do use words, but a lot of what's being communicated is nonverbal. And this, I feel, has even more of a universal message, that it goes beyond literal ideas to emotional ideas that I think are important at this time, especially.
I definitely agree with that. In your music, it can definitely strike some emotion. I will tell you that. I've been listening to it all afternoon. Well, Eric Nathan, thank you so much for joining us. You are speaking at the Providence Athenaeum. It is this Friday, October 27th. You can go, I'll put a link to it on our website if you want to go check him out and listen to him, how he's inspired and much more. He gives a little bit of an insight on that. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been a pleasure. And I can't wait to hear what comes next from you.
Thank you.
So hang tight, everyone. We're going to get set up for Business Monday starting at 4 o'clock with Josh Fenton. He kicks things off here in just a few moments. So thank you so much for joining us here on Go Local Live. I'm Molly O'Brien.